Julie.
All right, guys. Well, I'll start it off for us since we're waiting for Jacob. Hello, welcome to today's work session for the Board of Education on Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. I'm going to do a roll call. Ms. Reese?
Present.
Ms. Sebastian?
Here.
Mr. Elam?
Here.
Ms. Mansfield?
Here.
Mr. King is currently absent. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
I have two, just so we're on the same page with the 5-year forecast, Brennan. And then I also wanted to find out what we were doing with the end of year and exams, because that came up on a social media post today. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't get to the board meeting with surprise.
That'll be number 9 and number 10. Does anybody else have any additions?
No.
Okay, as of right now, I have no comments from the public. We'll also have another time for them to hearing of the public. Any new business?
No.
No? All right, first off, we're going to start with board doc training, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dennis.
Hi, I'm Dennis Rolfing, a trainer with BoardDocs. I had the pleasure of working with Brennan and earlier this month to go through, last month, to go through the training on BoardDocs. And what we did then is train them, and they picked it up very, very easily. And we took your February 10th agenda and recreated that in BoardDocs. So we're looking back in history, not forward, so that we're careful of open meetings law. So what I'm going to be showing you is my screen, and I'll click on that and share that with you. So you should be able to see it. My screen changed, so I hope yours did.
Yep, we see your...
Okay, good. So you should be seeing the screen. The question might be as to, okay, what is BoardDocs and where does it live? BoardDocs is an online paperless agenda system that you there at Bethel local school district are going to move to get rid of all the stacks of paper and all those things that are printed for every board meeting. This lives on the website, on the web, and this is the URL for your site that you're seeing up there. This is going to take you to another page where you would be able to then have a selection. So I'll leave that up there. You can copy that down. Brennan can put that out to whoever he chooses to. And excuse me, but at some excuse me, at some point in time, it will be placed on your website, so it'll be easy for everybody to find. So I'm just going to minimize that screen, and you will see your site. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, it's the same URL that I had before, and obviously your logo. Here it says enter public site and authenticate. Now, obviously the public would click here. You as board members would click here. So what this means is that you here as board members see some confidential information. Everybody knows that there are certain things under Ohio statute that are allowed to be withheld from the public, and that's what you would see that the public would not be able to see. So I'm going to, Brennan, you know what's in that meeting. Should I go ahead and use the authenticate side, or should they use the enter public site? Brennan?
I would probably authenticate, because I don't think we have anything on the public site yet.
Okay. Well, this is the public side of that meeting. I don't think we put anything confidential in there. I don't believe. So when you do that, you get the login screen, and I will log in here. When you do that, it takes you to the your BoardDocs site. And this is what we call the featured page. Like the movie marquee, the featured movie, here's the featured meeting. A little bit of information about when your meetings are held. If you have a question about something on the agenda, Brennan's name is here. You notice it's underlined. It's a web link. If somebody would click that, it would open up their email with Brennan's address already preloaded, and they could contact him with a question about the email. Easy for people to make use of. So we'll talk about some of these other things up here in a little while, but right now we're going to look at this meeting. This is the featured meeting. As you see, it's from February 10th, and I labeled it demonstration, that it is part of that meeting. So when I click on it, you get another screen. Here it shows more information about the meeting. And also over here, it shows that it is a featured meeting and also a 2020 line. This 2020, you notice, is a little plus sign right here. When I click on that bar, it shows the same thing. So what's the difference? The difference is that this 2020 will be every single meeting from 2020. The featured one is just the one that's happening, maybe just happened or is going to happen, that type of thing. It's the one up on the movie marquee. So over here, you would see several buttons. Some of these will be seen at one point in time, others will be later on. We're going to look at first the view the agenda button. So I will simply click on it. Here is your agenda on the left-hand side of the screen. The black bars are category names or section names. The roll call within that section is something called call to order, roll call, and pledge of allegiance. Then we move down to other ones, but we'll look at this one because you see it's a little bit darker, and I liken this to email. Here's your list of emails. So whichever one you click on is going to appear on the right-hand side of the screen. BoardDocs is designed to be very, very user-friendly, something that most people make use of. So here on this side of the screen, it's going to identify that information. It's going to say what meeting it's from. It's the category, the name of the item, the fact that this access is public. It's got to be, you're a public body. And it is a procedural item. If it's an action item, as I'll show you a little bit later on, it would say action. It would also have the motion in there. Then beneath that are what you see as two content areas. One where information is placed for the public to see, which will be most of the information that you will be putting into your agenda. And then there is an area right here called administrative content that is for more confidential information that Ohio statute allows you to withhold. So the icons up here at the top, this would move up the agenda or down the agenda one at a time. This is an edit pencil, which you will never see again, because that's how Brennan gets in to write the agenda. And a printer. Yes, you could, if I clicked on this, it would bring up a print of this page. And then you could click on print down here at the bottom, or I'm going to click on close here. To move to the next item, as I said, you can click on either one of these. If you happen to, you could click on the next item, or if you had a touch screen, you could just tap the item with your finger and it would move. So here, this is roll call. You see the only difference here is that the names of the board members are placed in here, just very similar to what you're used to seeing. Pledge of Allegiance, nothing in here. As I told Brennan when he was working on, when we were doing the board training, if on the occasion that you might have a guest coming in to do the Pledge of Allegiance for you, then you might put in here who that person is, why you invited him, that sort of thing. And I mentioned to him that what I've seen many organizations, school districts actually doing across the country, is that they are inviting veterans to come in and to lead the pledge, just as a way of saying thank you for their service and then recognizing them as such. The next item here on your agenda is a category of additions to the agenda if needed. This evening, there were a couple of items added to the agenda, so those could have been put in here by Brennan, and he would have then added them, and you would simply do a refresh of your screen, whether that's with the keyboard stroke or with the refresh, the circle up here at the top, whichever. But that simply says nothing. You can re-add your items on. Review of old business. Again, this is modeled after your February 10th meeting, so there was no business at that time. Administrative reports. Here's the administrative report from your special education staff, from your elementary principal, your middle school principal and your high school principal. Now they would have maybe put content in here if there would have been some, but they told me that typically they come to the meeting, do the presentation, and then they supply it to the staff after that to be recorded in the minutes. I said, you know, it sure would be nice if the board members could see that ahead of time. Might have a question about it.
Dennis, does this accept, this is Lori Sebastian, does this accept attachments? Because a lot of times the administrators have Word documents or.
Yes, it
Okay.
does. I'll show you one actually
Good.
right here. That little icon says that this item has an attachment. So you're quite correct. It does.
Oh, I see. Okay, good.
Right.
Also, as we move to BoardDocs, and because of the simplicity and just simply uploading information or typing in bullet point agenda items, I would anticipate that building principals will send me their items probably Wednesday of the week prior to the board meeting so that we could have that information on there for you folks to review.
Good.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
good practice.
will Della have access to this too? Because I know she compiles a lot of the agenda topics.
Della will be the one primarily that will be putting the items on here.
Okay.
Yes. Della was trained at the same time.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you.
they were just rocking it when we were talking about it. So here's an item, 2 additional substitute bus drivers. And again, there was nothing about them on the agenda. And another one about an upcoming safety professional development training on the 14th. Now, this is where you would typically allow public members to address the board about public items that the agenda are on the agenda. So what would be placed in here, and Brennan or Della is going to take care of that, are the guidelines, your board policy that says this is how much time you've got, these are the things you can say, these are the things you should avoid saying, but those will be placed in here. Important dates to know. There's from your board, from your agenda. Now, you can talk with Brennan if that font's too small, but we match the font up here, but you could make this a larger font or put it in color or do whatever they chose to do with it. Then we'll scoot down here. Notice I'm just scrolling down this left-hand side of the agenda. Here are the treasurer items. So when I click on this one, you notice, as we said before, it has an attachment. So it is an information item. Here are the minutes that are attached for the open session as well as the board minutes. So to open those, Brennan, is that all right if I open these?
Yes.
Okay. So I will you just click on it, just like any other. Now these aren't even yours. These are from my home district, but I just wanted to be careful about that because I wasn't remembering 100%. I've done several trainings since then. And I say my home district because I spent 37 years working for this district. I was a teacher, a principal, head of technology, cabinet level person, all that kind of good things. So I became the kind of resident historian because a lot of the people that were then leading the district were new to the district and didn't know, why did we do that 10 years ago? Well, I typically had those answers stashed away in my brain someplace. But they use the BoardDocs. They used it actually since I think about 2007 or 2006. So that's what their minutes look like. Now, just like in emails and just like in anything else, when you bring up an attachment, you want to close it. There's going to be an open box up here at the top that's highlighted. You click on it and you're back to the agenda. The next item here to be approve the payment of bills. Again, a different item here, and these are not your bills. I know that from the title. It's from another district that I, it's public information. I just used them. So yours would be presented however you chose them to be. Again, opens up in a separate tab up here at the top. So I click on that X and it closes and we move back. Clicking on these, here's a table that we inserted. So the tables they're used to seeing in your agendas are going to come into BoardDocs very, very similar to what they were in your agenda. And when I look at this agenda, that's almost exactly, except I right adjusted this when we put this in here instead of left adjusting. But it's whatever, however they choose to do it. They have all the flexibility to create the agenda that they had before. Another item here, the Board of Education to approve the following information. Coming down here, again, another table inserted. I'm just clicking down these because it doesn't take a lot. Now here, This is providing for the issuance of a bond not to exceed $19.2 million. Now, the reason I put all of this in here is because it was on your agenda. This is the public content. Now, I did not separate this as much as it was on your agenda, but it could be. So it looks like, wow, a bunch of material right there on the screen, but it could be separated, so it's much nicer. Or Brennan could take the actual item from the bonding attorney and copy that and turn it into a PDF and attach it. Whichever way seems to work out best for that particular document. So you see this area holds quite a bit of information. It has the capability of holding 32,000 characters, which is roughly 8 pages single spaced. And your attachments, you can have, and this is a nice thing. You noticed up here on that first one, I had 2 sets of minutes attached. You can attach, or your staff can attach for you, any number of attachments that you want. So I encouraged them when I did the training, don't take a lot of information and put it into one single PDF that you have the joy of scrolling through. Do multiple attachments. And question, how many? Well, there is no limit. You can have as many attachments as you want. And each individual single attachment has a file size limitation of 100 meg. It's very, very large because we don't want you to run into issues. So this very easily could have been an attachment, or I just put it in here just to show Brennan and Della and you now that there could be a whole lot of information in here. Motion to place items in the treasury report on the consent calendar. Motion second, just like what you're used to seeing. And then to adopt that consent calendar. Information from the treasurer, there was none at that time. Then moving on to the superintendent's report. Just something here from that was on that agenda. We copied and pasted into the public content area. Supplemental employments, again, for different people. And again, we can click down this and see we put in another resolution here. Just whatever was in your agenda, we replicated in here, and you see that pretty much everything came in just fine. Comments from board members. This is where board members would be able to talk about the different things they did in the district. I saw this, I went to the kindergarten program or whatever it might be. And then again, guidelines for addressing the board for any items that are of interest to the public that they would want to bring up to the Board of Education. Again, the guidelines would be inserted here. And then we put in an executive session if needed, and put in the note that you typically had on your agenda for executive sessions that these things could come up and they might be something that needs to happen. And this is the motion to go into that executive session with the items from Ohio statute listed here, and they could be checked off as to which one they would be when they're presented to you in a real meeting. But we didn't go into that here. And then the public content would be, again, the voting of how that was done. Other items that might be on your agenda, and then the adjournment. So I hope you saw that was very, very simple and very easy to use. Very often, the board members that I've worked with literally all over the country, some of them are naturals at it, others are a little bit hesitant, like what's it going to look like? It is designed very much like email so that it's very easy for people to use. So I hope that didn't cause any issues with anybody. Are there any questions about the structure of your agenda, what it looks like, how it can be presented, anything like that at this time before we go on to a couple of other things? Hearing none, we'll go back up here. The meetings tab, as you saw up here, that's the featured meetings and the active meetings that we talked about earlier. Now, right here, it says draft. You will not see that because the draft meetings are not ready for you yet, but I'm logged in as Brennan right now. The agenda is here, and this tab simply serves as a bookmark. This is the last item that I clicked on, the adjournment. Why is that there? It's there because of this next tab. Your policies are placed in here. So if you as a board member or as a public citizen sees something on the agenda and they wonder what does our policy say about it, you could simply go into your policies. You could search all of these. They're searchable as a search field right up here at the top. And you would search whatever's here in your policies. And then to go back to that agenda item, you simply click on the agenda button and you're taken right back to where you left. It's a bookmark for where you left from. Handy tool. So as I mentioned, your policies are here. You can click on them. They're from Neola. Neola is a partner of BoardDocs. We've worked together for quite a few years now, and they just ported right directly over. Moving up here to the top, it says the Board of Education. That's obviously whose site this is. The house right here, I'm not going to click on it because it will take me out of BoardDocs. It will take me to your district's homepage. So at some point down the road on your district's homepage, there will be a link directly back to BoardDocs, but that I don't believe has been established yet. Now, as I mentioned before, your policies are searchable. Also, when we were on that meeting, we could search that meeting, that individual one agenda. But many times a question arises as to, well, when did we have that on the agenda? When did we vote for that? So then it's Della's chance to go play in the file cabinets for a while, or you can do it yourself now, because right here is a magnifying glass. That will search all of your meeting agendas that are in BoardDocs, all of your policies, all of their minutes after they're approved and put into BoardDocs. And also it will search every single one of your attachments as long as those attachments are created searchably. Now, most things can be done that way, but every once in a while you run into that handwritten note that cannot be turned into something searchable, but they of course would describe it enough in the agenda so that they could find it. So if we talked about something here like I think that was in one of the, it came up in a policy across here. So it found something there. So this is searching your information. This is something that is available to you. It's available to the public. But of course, if you search it, it would search all the information, including that information that is something for your eyes only. The meta search over here is a little bit different. This is not available to the public. This is a service to you as board members and your staff. Very often a question that comes up in a school district of, we're thinking about doing this. I wonder what other people are doing. So that's a very common thing that the treasurers and superintendents in Ohio talk to each other about. This is a search that they could make use of to see what are other organizations that use BoardDocs. These are all of our subscribers across the country, roughly 4,500 entities, and saying what do they have in their BoardDocs instance about uniform school fees. It brings back a maximum of 250, but you'll see things, a lot of Ohio's in here, but there are some Illinois, Kansas, Washington, Williamsburg, Ohio, Rochester, Washington, just scrolling down a little bit, some in Kansas. So this helps answer that question of what are other people doing about this? This is something, a service to you as board members, as well as a service to your superintendent and your treasurer, and Della also has access to this. So if I wanted to see what is going on with, let's see, now here's uniform complaint in Kerman Unified School District in California. When I click on it, you actually see the agenda item that was placed on the agenda, or you will actually see their policy. If we wanted to look at this policy here from the school district of, I didn't see which one it was. There's their actual policy. That's designed to be an assist to you as board members and assist to you as the superintendent, as treasurer, and Della, of course, as the board clerk the ability to find out and to help you answer that question of what are other people doing about this. I'm simply going to close it down here. I'm back to here, to this screen, and the big X up here in the left-hand corner closes it and takes us right back. Now, for you, right up here, there is a little person and a drop down. That drop down and it shows who's logged in. The contact info is my email address. It would be your email address when you're logged in. This is where you would go to change your password. So Brendan's going to give you your password at some point in time. You would enter your old password once, your new password twice. Here are the rules. Brendan made them as simple as we could. The minimum is 10. That's really minimal for many organizations, but we also do require upper and lower case, a number and a special character. So you can be thinking about what you would want. Brennan decided not to turn on password expiration for you. So you you owe him a big thanks for that. Then you would obviously click on change password. I'm going to click on cancel here, and that password then would be reset. If you need some help with BoardDocs, how can you get it? One is you can call Brennan, Della. All right, here is BoardDocs help. This is a user's guide geared to you. Now, as I said, I'm logged in as somebody with Brennan's level of access and Della's, but right here is a 800 number. That is our support staff. Call them whenever you have a question, no matter what it is. They will answer it with only one exception. They're used to people calling them of, we just got BoardDocs, how do I do this, how do I do that? They're ready to help you. They will walk you through it. They will help you with it any time of the day or night. They literally take calls all night long. The only question they cannot help you with is your password and username, your identifying information to get into the system. If you happen to forget that, Brennan can tell you what it is, and he can reset it to be something and then have you go in and change it again. Nobody knows your password. I don't know it. Nobody in the company knows it. Those are totally locked up by and under encryption when they're put away. Right here, these are what we call fast tracks. This is one that you might be interested in. It is otherwise known as a cheat sheet on what you as board members need to know how to do certain things. Many people print this out for the first couple months and make use of it, and you've got it there for you if you choose to make use of that. If not, like I said, it's very simple, very straightforward, but sometimes it's, well, where do I click? Where did Dennis show me to click? That's the type of thing this is for. Again, this opens in a separate tab up here at the top. We click on it to close it, and we're back to your opening page of your agenda. Now, when I click on this, you see this little icon over here. I wanted to mention that also. When I click on it, email and URL is showing. So what this is that social sharing. That if someone was in your agenda and wanted to ask a question of somebody else, not necessarily connected with the district, they wanted to, maybe you're recognizing John Jones and Grandma Jones wants to share that with Cousin Martha. She could simply email that directly to Cousin Martha through BoardDocs. It brings up their email. It's not your email for the district. Other things out here, print the agenda. This is the simple agenda. That's what we call it. It's just the names of the items that are on the agenda. Just the items. The detailed agenda is just that. It has all the details for your complete agenda. The attachments will appear here, but they will not print. We're trying to save paper somehow. But if you wanted to print this out, you could click on it, it would open, and you could print that individually. You print the ones you need, not the ones you don't need. Again, the current agenda item, you would have to be on the agenda item like I showed you before to get that item. This is always going to print the roll call, the call to order, the very first one on the agenda. Down here, I'm going to close this again and come back and talk about these last two buttons. This add minutes button is where your minutes will be placed after they are approved at the next meeting. So they're available for the public. It is not the official copy of your record, of your minutes. That's in the vault. That's the one that's signed and put in the vault. This is a copy of it, an exact copy of it, but it should not be the official ones. There has to be one official copy, and that is something that is stored in your vault by statute. Has to be on paper. The edit video, the video of any meeting can be recorded and stored in here. And I showed Brendan how to do that. It's very simple. It's done through YouTube. I'll show you what it would look like. When I click on this, it would bring up in this panel. This is how he would do it. Simply put in the YouTube identifier right here, click the word set, and this would become the start of that video. Click on the YouTube go button, and it would start playing. So it's an easy process for him to do to make the meeting available to be stored on YouTube and then also to be linked. Because here you would be able to see the video of the meeting, see the minutes from the meeting after they're approved at the following one, print the agenda and view the agenda all from the one screen. Questions?
Yeah, on the video, Dennis, did I see correctly that it lets you tag certain subjects? So let's say like the fifth item on the agenda, somebody wanted to come in and watch it. They wouldn't have to preview the first 2 hours or however long it was.
That's something that can be done.
Okay.
The question of, and I think Brennan has a way of doing that because it's not difficult. It's just somebody's got to sit there with a stopwatch and time the minutes on the agenda items. And I think Brennan already has a solution for that where he would fill this out. So what would happen, I'll just show you with that, since there's nothing in here, then a person could come, if they wanted to come down here to this this guidelines for addressing the board, when somebody, they would click on it, and right up here there would be a little icon of a film strip. Click on that and it would start playing from that point.
Great.
So it works out very, very nicely that way. And Brennan's got a very easy way to do that, I believe. Correct, Brennan? I think you told me that.
Yeah, when we go back to
Yeah, right,
we're gonna
absolutely,
have the
right.
recording.
When you go back to that.
So
Yeah,
on the top, we'll put the recording there.
sure. Okay, any questions then?
Yes, I have some questions.
Please.
This is Julie.
Uh-huh.
So when you were going through the agenda and it came to the section on adding the items, are you then saying that they would be added on the spot to this agenda?
They could be.
Okay. And the same if we do the consent calendar, and if we pull an item out of there, is the same thing possible for that it could be pulled out?
Well, when Brennan and Dell and I set this up, all the things of here are a motion to place these onto the consent. These are all in as information items because of what you said, not knowing which ones you would include in that. But this motion then would be specific by saying which items it would be, and that's what you would be voting on. So you could go backwards and click on this and change it. Della or Brennan could, but that could slow the meeting down a little bit by changing it. But he would simply, or whoever's taking the minutes, and I believe that's Brennan at your meetings, he would include in this motion which items it would be that would be considered. And they could be marked up later. And of course, they would appear in the official minutes to be that way.
Okay, just wondered how difficult that was.
It's just
And
that
then,
when you add items to the agenda, like we're talking here, then that's when you would have to refresh. And
right.
with 5-6 people refreshing, it might take 2-3 minutes, and some people, or that's okay. Other people don't want that to happen. So it's just whichever way you choose.
Okay, I see. Okay, and then is there a period of time where the board can see it, but the public cannot? Because one of the things we talked about using this for was, as it gets built, we would get notifications that things were being added. But I don't know if,
Yes.
so kind of like a draft period that's not really a draft.
Brennan's looking at that and trying to come up with, that was part of the point I think he was making before about getting people to give him the items early enough so that he could allow time for that. I believe that's where you were headed, Brennan, with that.
So when you log on, you'll be able to see the draft. We won't make it public until we finalize it. So when you log into your
Okay.
public docs, you'll see draft. And only you and Justin, I, and Della will be able to see that.
Okay, gotcha. And then, so I noticed that there's an archive. How long do the entries stay out of the archive before they're archived?
You mean
Is that something?
here in this?
Yeah.
Well, I could show you a site right here. No, I can't. I'd have to flip over to a different browser.
Well, I'm just wondering.
They stay there forever. Literally, they stay there forever. And we do have organizations that have used BoardDocs, and they will go back and they might recreate the meeting and attach the minutes there that are searchable so that you can make use of that search tool as far back as you have electronic minutes and you have that. But I know of an organization that actually went back and did that with the minutes from every single meeting that are in some cases handwritten because they went back to 1838.
Wow. and can you,
yeah.
does the search capability apply to the archive or it does not?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does. So that when you would search here, you would search everything down here in your meetings. It's just that the global search over here, that would search your meetings and your policies and other things too. But this would search all of your meetings.
Okay, gotcha.
Sure.
And then how do we know, so we were told that there was a notification to this so that the board members don't have to come out and poll. So there's a push capability to send something to us that something has been added or updated.
That's what Brennan's would, when Brennan gives you the agenda, he would give it to you. Now there are other versions of BoardDocs that have some bells and whistles to it. And many times I talk with Brennan about this, that sometimes organizations do go to that other version simply because it has more bells and whistles that they eventually like.
Okay. So what you're saying now is if Brennan updates something or Della updates something, they have to
let you know, right? What I suggested to them to do is to do something like, if this item was added of elementary principle, to say added item or addendum or something, or put them all into one grouping where if it's empty, there were none. If there were things added, then they would appear under that grouping.
Okay. And then same thing for like an attachment that's updated or if text is updated within
right.
it.
He would have to let you know. That's one of the things, more bells and whistles adds on dollars.
Okay, and then
no, I was just saying, coming in as you do, many organizations do that, and they change to that other version sometimes within a year, sometimes it's 2 or 3 years down the road. It just depends.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, just a couple more. So
sure,
one question,
please, that's what I'm here for.
This is just based on your experience. Do schools ever add public content that would be normally above just the agenda item? So for instance, a lot of times we ask Brennan for explanations on some of the financial things.
Sure.
Could he put those in here? Is that done normally or not done?
Let me show you something. I'm just going to another site here. And I'm going to pull it over. This is my home district, to answer your question. They started in 2007. We'll look at their March meeting. For instance, approval of the minutes. Let's come down here to something else here. This is public information.
Okay,
So in answer to your question, yes, many organizations do. That is not universal. The first filter that you would look at is what does state statute say you can withhold from the public by state statute. And once you get past that, it becomes what your choice is as a board.
okay, gotcha.
I have, over the years that I've been doing this training, I'm in my 10th year now of doing trainings like this. I've seen more and more boards put more and more information out to the public because the public is asking for it.
Right, and I wasn't talking about things that we would hide. Normally, you know, we'd
No.
ask the question at the board meeting and Brennan or Superintendent Firks would give an answer. And I was just thinking it would be nice if, you know, or maybe it'd be easier if that explanation was already in there to say, you know,
It
this
certainly can
appropriation was
be.
blah, blah, blah.
And that's exactly why this is done, because in some districts across the country, there are individuals in the community that are very interested in their school districts. So they want to know what's going on, and that helps give that information out to the citizens of the district, because after all, it is their district.
Right. Okay, one last question.
No,
So
please.
the flip side of that is, what if we have a question about something that's in here? Is there a way to ask a question to the superintendent or the treasurer?
You could, on that individual item, like for instance, if we were on this item, you could come here, click on email, and it would bring up my email system with the information. Then you could just type it in and send it to the superintendent or the treasurer.
Oh, okay, but there's no way for us to ask a question within the board docs, then that would stay
no,
there. It
no,
still would be
no,
an email.
no, there's not. The other version does have annotation ability where you could jot a note to yourself, but it's just yours, nobody else's. It's not,
Okay.
you know, because that'd be like if you shared it with let's see, Lida, and then she shared with Lori, then all of a sudden you've got a quorum.
Right, okay.
So that's why it's frowned upon and also illegal.
But we could send them the question and then they could.
Sure,
add
because
additional
for you to ask the
information to-
superintendent a question is a very normal process. And for him to,
Right.
to reply to that is a normal process. So that's not anything out of the ordinary.
But he could potentially reply here if it was something that could be, that people need to know about.
He
Or
could
add
include
information.
that into an addition to the agenda or addition to that description or something like that, where it's more explanation based upon your questions.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure. That's what I'm here for. Any other questions? I will be happy to answer them, but I don't want to, you know, sit here and we could talk about the 60s.
No, I love it. I was playing around in it before on the little basic stuff that's out there that we can access so far, and I think it's great. Danny, what do you think?
I think I can handle it.
Yay!
All
Yay!
that tough.
I know you were concerned, so I love that. That's awesome.
You're right. It looks a lot like email.
Yep, it's very, very simply designed. Well, thank you for your participation tonight and for allowing me to take up part of your time and during this work session for you. And, you know, like I said, my heart's in education. I was there in that district for 37 years, and I still go to districts all around the country working with them. So my heart is very much there. And right now, above all, stay safe.
You too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
So,
All right. So next item is HSA information, and I will bring up a presentation. On that. So as you know, when I started here, one of the things, obviously the biggest expenditures for a school district are salary and benefits. We recently brought on McGowan Bromбender for consulting services. So what we did was we did a survey to the staff, and it had a series of questions that we asked. Basically, this presentation is for the key components that I feel from the results of that survey to go over with. Also in the Zoom meeting now is Justin and Lindsay from McGowan Bromбender to help answer any questions you guys might have. Also, what could be the next steps for the district. So to get going, the first survey, so the first one of the questions we asked was, how many staff members are currently enrolled in the Bethel healthcare plan? We had a total of 88 participants that filled out the survey. Of those, 67 said they were, 21 said they were not. The next question was, how would you rate the benefit plan? Overall, it was average or above, which is pretty good. And then one of the other questions we asked was, how do we compare to other local employers? Again, average or above, were the majority of the responses. One of the questions we asked was if they'd be interested in different plans to choose from. One would be cost more and provide higher benefits, while another may cost less and provide lesser benefits. 53 of those surveys said they would be interested, whereas 33 said they were not. And then one of the last questions we asked was about the HSA with the high deductible, and if they had an option to participate, would they? And 39 said yes, and 46 said no. So based off these results, one of the things the district can consider is also offering a high deductible, high premium HSA to its employees. We've been notified by the EPC that our plan year is going to change from October to January, beginning in 1/1/21. Therefore, we'll have actually 2 opportunities to enroll staff in this next coming, next 7 months. So we always want to compare data to the data that we receive. So the charts that are shown here, the one on the left is from the annual CERB survey that every Ohio government entity has to fill out related to their health insurance and all their benefits. And that shows what the average, the minimum, and the maximum, the employer contribution to the health savings account. Also, figure 15 and 16 show the percentage based off of that, of the dollar range that they contribute. And then I reached out to local treasurers in the Miami County area to see if any of them had HSAs. Also, what are their in and out network premium amounts, as well as what does the district contribute to an employee's HSA. Another thing to consider would be is if the district would want to look at pursuing this, we would have to also do an MOU with the DEA, as we would want to offer another option to health insurance. And with that, I'm going to let Justin and Lindsay, if they have anything else to add.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Brennan, I think Anne Marie is in the waiting room for the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
It might show up as Victoria, depending on what account she's using. Hey, Anne Marie. So Brennan just walked through this, his slideshow for the board here, and just asked if we had anything to add. And really, what I would just add is, I think, looking at the survey, it was a really good turnout, a lot of participation on that survey. And just where you are as a district offering the very rich PPO, I think it makes a lot of sense to consider the high deductible health plan. It can be a cost-effective alternative for the district and for the employees for a number of reasons. So if you do decide that you want to move forward and explore what that looks like, really what that means to us is we start working with Brennan and Amy and Justin and kind of figure out what you want that plan to look like. And we can run all kinds of different scenarios that they can then put in front of you at a later time. But, we can do a kind of a low, medium, high scenario if you want to think of it that way. But I think the key is really, there's no harm in doing it. If you ask me to list out all the positives and negatives, it would mostly be positives. It will not cost you more. It's something we do all the time. This is, one of the reasons you hired us to help out your school district. So I would encourage you to think about moving forward with that. And at any time, if you don't like what you're seeing, we don't have to move forward and put it into action. So based on what Brennan has already said, would love to have any questions that you all have for the McGowan Bender team to answer.
So this is Julie. I have a question. So you said there's no negatives at all, which I love, but I just have one question just to be sure. So if some people move to an HSA or a high deductible plan with the HSA, that doesn't cause the non-high deductible plans to go up in price. Is that correct?
Well, it can. So what's unique about your situation is you're in the EPC, which is a big consortium of schools that pool all of their experience and buying power together to get some economic benefits. But basically, the plan can be adjusted in a number of ways. To answer your question, it doesn't have to. The PPO plan would still be offered, and those that love the PPO plan can keep the PPO plan. And those where the high deductible HSA plan might make more sense for them, they could also look at that. But the premiums can be modified, if you will, based on what you want. Anne Marie, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Julie, if you were asking the question from the member's perspective or the underwriting perspective.
I guess from any perspective.
Okay. So, I mean, there were times in the past, I mean, we're going back 10 or more years ago, where offering multiple plans would cause a load to your rates from the underwriters. So people remember that. And then they think, well, I shouldn't offer two plans because someone told me somewhere along the way it's going to cost me more. And underwriters do that or did that as a practice, loaded rates for multiple plans, because they know that members get smart and they do something which is select against a plan. So in a year that I have something, I know I'm going to have a planned surgery, or I know I need something done because my doctor told me, I select the lower deductible. And the next year I'm not going to have anything done, so I select the high deductible, and I switch back and forth because I'm a good, consumer and I'm trying to get the most out of my benefits. So underwriters know that about people. And so in years past would load the rates to even out for adverse selection. That's secret code for profits for the insurance company. So there's some fact and truth about that, but honestly, it didn't do anything except cause rates to be higher. Then we had the whole advent of ACA in 2010, And suddenly choice was everyone's best friend, and we should have 5 and 6 plan offerings, and everyone should be able to pick whatever they want. And people went absolutely crazy. Group health plans offering 5 and 6 and 8 and 10 options. And that was fun. So they stopped loading the rates for that because they couldn't keep up with it. So it doesn't cost you more. Your rates won't change in that plan. And ultimately, what you decide to set the rates at in terms of what the member pays, as Justin was saying, will be up to the district and obviously the contract and that you have in place. So, of course, I don't know if I'm opening a can of worms or if we talked about this, but if you add any type of funding to the HSA where you contribute to the account, we would want to incorporate that in your overall cost structure so that we understood how much is the HSA really costing the district or the high deductible health plan, and then how much is the PPO costing the district. So we would incorporate that in there, but I don't see no reason not to do it because of cost.
Okay, thank you.
So along those same lines, for company or schools or districts, companies you've seen do this, what have you seen for the experience then, particularly EPC schools? If you have participants vacate the EPC plan and go to the high deductible plan, what ends up being the experience and then therefore the rate impact to the EPC plan when we lose members?
It's all under the EPC. Nothing changes about the EPC. It's just another plan inside your current arrangement.
Sure, but I mean, we've seen a lot of rate increases from the EPC lately. Have you noticed that those schools have been impacted more heavily because their experience has been more poor based on the people that have remained in the EPC plan? Or is that not being a thing?
So you're talking about the PPO plan? When you
Yeah.
say EPC, okay, so you're still going to be rated as a group. Okay.
Sure.
So whether you offer 1 plan, 2 plans, 3 plans, they're not going to rate your individual plans one at a time because they're not large enough. They're not credible. So you can't do that. So they're still going to rate you as a group. So your population of people that you insure today is your population, so whether they're in 1 plan or another. If you think that suddenly because someone's in an HSA, they're going to need different healthcare, they won't. If I'm treating a diabetic condition, whether I take the PPO or I take the HSA, I still need my insulin if I'm insulin dependent, right?
Yep.
I just might, check 1 or 2 pharmacies to see what the price is, or I might not refill my needles if I have 50 left just because my prescription's ready. Like, I might be a better consumer because I'm in the HSA, but I don't need more or less healthcare because I'm in the HSA.
Yeah. So our position in the tiering won't probably change on an average over time.
Over time, yes, it should, because people will become better consumers, but
Okay.
it won't be immediate. It's not like flipping a switch in any means. And typically what we see for early migration to an HSA or a high deductible plan are those that are very healthy and those that are very ill. We get both ends of the spectrum. They migrate to that plan because they can figure out, well, once I hit my maximum, once I hit my deductible, depending on how we structure the plan, then everything's covered in full, or everything's covered at, some co-insurance percent, versus being on the PPO. Once I hit my deductible, I have co-pays, that are sort of endless until I get to my max out of pocket. So they feel like, death by 1,000 paper cuts on that plan, versus under the HSA or high deductible, they might hit their deductible in the first quarter if they're treating a major condition, and then everything may be covered for the rest of the year. So they still may spend the same amount of money. It's just the cash flow and how it rolls out. And really, we have a decision support tool that members can use to try to make the best decision for themselves based on what they know about their family's need. But those are typically the 2 populations that migrate the first. And then everybody in between is like, I don't really know. I kind of like this PPO, not sure what that means. So we would want to set a goal up front with the district, like we'd like to get 30% of the people enrolled, or our goal is just to educate and let the chips fall where they will. We'd kind of like to know up front before I'm getting the cart ahead of the horse here, but we wouldn't want to go in blindly. We would want to go in with some aim in mind so we could say, how did we do, right?
Okay.
This is Lori Sebastian. What's your, in other school districts, how do people convert? Does it eventually get to 50, 75% until everybody converts to an HSA, or do you have districts that continue to offer both plans indefinitely?
We see both, and a lot of that has to do with the collective bargaining agreements and how agreeable who wants it, right? So if the union
Sure.
wants it, of course, that's a lot easier. If the district wants it and the union isn't for taking away that PPO, then it becomes a lot more difficult. Over time, we do see more migration towards an HSA as it's in a plan. And there are times where we'll go all the way HSA, and then we'll have 2 HSAs, right? Maybe a lower deductible HSA, higher deductible HSA. So there is definitely a progression of plan design, like an evolution, if you will. You guys aren't at this point today, but there comes a time where your PPO could become quite more expensive than it is with worse benefits. And if you get to a point where you can't change the plan anymore, or else it's not beneficial, or it just doesn't make sense. Like, we sometimes have to protect people from themselves of wanting to purchase that PPO if it starts to become too expensive. And that becomes that tipping point where, it begins to be considered to be eliminated. And usually that's a multi-year process.
And then my second question is, I know I think you guys service UD. My husband works for UDRI. And so we went through that process, I don't know, 5 years ago, I think it was. And it's been very beneficial. But I know the first year for me, even being a finance person, it was a little disconcerting. So what kinds of education do you provide to our employees and staff so they're more comfortable with it? Because it's just different.
It is different. And you have, I think, what I'll say a distinct advantage of being a small district, where we can be a little bit more intimate and hands-on with your workforce and your employees than perhaps the university can be or is. So there is that advantage. We have many ways to communicate with your staff, and that can be through small group meetings, large group meetings, videos. We have many short educational videos that people can watch that explain things very simply. We can do voice over PowerPoint, where they can run the PowerPoint, and probably Lindsay speaks in the background and explains each slide. So we have every avenue you can think of to educate your workforce. It just depends on how much access we can gain to them. Obviously, it's all different right now, but if they're in the classroom, we can't, talk to them while they're trying to teach. And I know it's sometimes, it's hard to get everybody together. So whatever access we can get, or whatever you think is the most beneficial way for your staff to learn, we're willing to try.
Justin, is this something that could be brought up at a in-service day?
We have a number of opportunities throughout the course of the school year, whether it be summer in-service, depending upon where we're at this summer with our current situation. But we also have days that are built into our master calendar next school year that could be, this could be considered a professional development opportunity, where you would have access to the entire district, or we could break it down into smaller groups like building levels, do rotations, and have them attend different various sessions on those days. So to answer your question, simply, yes, there is opportunities.
That's a typical way we would work with the district. Since we haven't done any of that yet with you, I just didn't know, but thanks for clarifying, Justin.
The question I have, this is Jacob, is I'm concerned about providing the high deductible HSA to some of our personnel who think that maybe they're in good health and they're not concerned about the deductible because they're, don't think they're going to need much health care. And all of a sudden something does go wrong and they need extensive health care, that they'll find themselves without the deductible. Is there pieces to the program that allow us to help the employee in that case? So that's that's part one. And I'll say my fear is I don't want any of our staff to be getting into the plan and get in that situation because we were trying to save money for the district at their expense, if that makes sense.
Yep, I understand your concern, and it's one that many employers share, especially if you have that, desire to want to take care of your staff and like help them make good decisions. So I would start by saying, if you offer the plan and you didn't educate them, and you didn't tell them anything about it, it would seem reckless, and we would not recommend that or represent that. So for sure, educating your workforce, making sure they understand the choices that they're making. No one can guess what your healthcare is going to be in 12 months. I mean, I wish we could, but no one could guess we'd be in the middle of a global pandemic three or 4 months ago. I mean, things are unpredictable. So you have to separate yourself a little bit from having them make a good decision at the time and then having it turn bad versus having them make a bad decision. And so again, not telling you how to, run your show here, but as long as we help them make a good decision, I think you should feel good about that, part one. The second part I would say is for districts or organizations that are very concerned about that. What people make in terms of payroll. I mean, you don't know what their spouses make if they have one, but you don't know their household income, but you know what your employees make. And so you look at that and say, wow, some of our newer teachers might not be able to afford a $4,000 or $5,000 family deductible if they had a major situation. And now we've, basically bankrupt our employee, and we feel really bad about that. That's a concern, right? It's not an unknown that 2/3 of people don't have $1,000 to pay a medical bill across all walks of life. So most people just don't have that money saved up. It is an issue. There's a couple of things. One, we will always work with them to work with the physicians, the hospitals, et cetera, to work out a plan for payments if they get into that situation. So they won't be alone in that regard. Two, we have a lot of districts that will offer, and you guys may already offer it, critical illness and accident policies, either employee paid or employer paid, that will allow the members to purchase a critical illness or accident policy, meaning if they break their leg, they get a payment, or if they, get diagnosed with cancer, they get a payment. That helps fund their deductible. So in situations where you are very conservative and your risk tolerance is very low for your workforce, that's a way to mitigate some of that. And those are fully insured products that come at a very low cost that you can pair with your high deductible health plan. So
Anne Marie, is that the section 125 stuff?
No, section 125 is just a way for you to take payments for benefits on a pre-tax basis from your employee's paycheck. So I don't know if people refer to those products like that when they talk to you, but these would be like a voluntary product or an employer paid product that would be called like critical illness, hospital indemnity, or accident. Those would be the specific names of the product. An Aflac type product, but we probably wouldn't put an Aflac product in. We'd use another carrier. So did I answer your question, Jacob, and also Danny?
Could I add something there, Anne Marie? And Jacob, just talking more on the questions you asked, part of the benefit of the HSA would be a lower premium out of their paycheck every period. And so that kind of goes hand in hand with the education. So one, it's giving them a choice. If they want more of that money in their take-home pay, they have that opportunity. But then they can take that money tax-free and put it into an HSA product in a savings account that they keep forever or until they use it. So it does kind of if they're disciplined enough to take that money and invest it in themselves and their future healthcare, they can do that. So that's a major plus. And you know, it's kind of hard to do. A lot of people they just want the extra money, but if they're able to sock away an extra $50 or $100 a month, you know, and they're healthy, that really builds up over time, and it can be a big benefit for those employees.
I just want to take 1 second. Lindsay, you're noticeably younger than most of us. I see your young face. You work for us, so I know that you're younger. And we have 2 HSA options at McGowan Brabender. What did you have before you came to McGowan Brabender? And are you even on our benefits? I'm asking you a personal question. You might be on your parents' plan. I don't know.
I am still on my parents until July.
Okay.
But I would love having the HSA or the high deductible health plan, just because I am one of those relatively healthy people. And either on the PPO or high deductible health plan, your preventative care is covered. So I would see it as a plus, just having the option to to be able to take that plan over a PPO.
So you're going to have to look at our plans to come on them in July, right? When you go off your parents' plan. Yeah. Okay. So you'll have a firsthand experience of looking at that.
Yeah, thank you. I think all 3 of you answered my questions, and I think a key element too is that was just brought up is preventative care would be considered as part of the plan, and the high deductible would be for something outside of that, if something is found and you had to have something done. Because that would work for me. I typically only go to the doctor if I hurt myself, so it seems pretty good.
Yeah. So like for ill visits or surgery or something like that. And again, there's an opportunity, depending on how the rates look and how we structure it, that the district could fund money into people's HSA. So you could give some amounts. You know, I'm making these up, $250 for a single, $500 for a family. You could do more. Some districts do 100%. I don't love that. People get used to what they consider, like when they call it free money, and it's not free, it's coming from somewhere. So you could do match contributions over time where you start to match what they put in. There's all kinds of ways to structure that so that, let's say, you know, on average, you know, the number fluctuates. I don't even know what this year's statistics would look like, but people have like 2.3 ill visits a year, meaning I have a cold, a sinus infection, the flu, what have you. I have to go to the doctor because I'm not feeling well. And so, you know, giving people a couple $100s into their HSA account usually will cover the cost of those, you know, 2 or 3 ill visits and a prescription. And then their preventives covered. And then of course, anything major would be, you know, subject to the deductible. So there's reasons to fund in certain ways and lots of ways to structure it. If you're interested in, you know, in pursuing it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd be interested in seeing, you know, ways where we can enhance. Like this is the, you know, however we're going to lay out the plan. You know, that this is there's opportunities to get a little bit more from us. For an example, whether that's a healthy program, a step program, you know, whatever those. Do you have some of those already written out programs that we could use with everyone that would show where they could gain a little bit more by being healthier?
Yeah, so we have our population health manager, Tiffany Cook. She has all sorts of programs in a can, as we would call them, where you could put those in place where people could earn, you know, dollars into their HSA if you wanted to tie it to that. So if I engage in a more active or healthier lifestyle, I might end up with more in my HSA at the end of the year funded by the district than, you know, maybe my counterpart who didn't do it or didn't turn in their things. So there's definitely ways to tie health and wellness to the dollars for sure.
Excellent. You know, the biggest key I think all of us want is for everyone to be healthy and to support them in the event that they have a medical issue arise.
Mr. King, one of the experiences that I've had previously was our district hosted a health fair with a number of different tests that staff members could come to and partake in. And once they participated in those tests, they earned dollar amounts towards those kind of things. So that's what you're kind of talking about.
Yes, thank you. It's right on.
Yeah, and Brennan, this is a question for you. Did we, and I don't know if you want to disclose this publicly, and if you don't, that's fine. Did we hear back from our PPO to see what the annual increase was going to be at this point in time?
We have not. They informed me they wanted to wait until the end of May to notify us.
And when are we supposed to sign a renewal with them?
Very good question. I don't know what the time frame that's changed. I don't know what their new. Usually, it was by now that you signed, but they wanted to wait to give us more accurate numbers because of the high increase last year that all the schools experienced. So.
And what is your projection? Just a rough figure. What would you project the increase to be?
Well, you know, the last 6 years, the average was 5. So that's what I had. And we had 17. So I had 10 in the 5-year forecast. So that's what I'm hoping for. But I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you.
So you're looking anywhere from at least 10 to 20% increase is what you're thinking potentially?
I would say, yeah, 10 would be probably the optimistic number. Anything above would be what could happen. But it threw everybody off. It wasn't just me. It was every school district. Like I said, we had 2 years where we didn't have any increase. And what kind of hurt was, even though they didn't think we needed to increase, they should have increased so we didn't have this major impact.
Right.
And now they're trying to catch up. And you know, it's really we're meeting our goals and everything, but it's, you know, like I said, we're part of a consortium, so it's you're just part of the pie. It's the overall. So yes, we only had the lowest, but some school districts had 26%. So I'm hoping it's just 10, but that was one of the reasons why I decided to look into this, was just because of the drastic increase to the plan. Also, to keep in mind is, you know, with the current agreement that we have with the union, any new staff, they're not getting any steps. So, you know, this year, the newer staff, they're not getting a step, and they had a 17% increase in their insurance. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to look into this as another option.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why UD went to it when they did. And I mean, I don't fault them. Healthcare had gone up astronomically for them, and they were trying to get a handle on things. And I'll tell you, from using it, I've been very pleased. It does require you to manage your appointments and your bills appropriately, so you can send those off and get reimbursed. But I found the process overall very, very straightforward. It was that learning curve to get there and how it was all going to work out. And at the time, we didn't have any major health issues. We have had a family situation where that occurred, and it still worked out very well for us. So
I think, and Brennan, you're giving us this information. I'm just trying to track, right? So you'll be looking for us to make a decision. I think collectively as a team, what?
I think if you would like for us to look into proposing a plan to the board, I would work with Anna Marie, Justin, and Lindsay, and have something to present to you guys. I don't know what the cutoff date would be exactly, but like I said, our plan, we're going to have 2 open enrollments coming this fall, because our plans are going to be because we're actually going to be under a 15, because they're moving us from a 10-1 to a 1-1. So we do have 2 opportunities, but depending if we, take some time to develop the plan, I would shoot for the 1-1 to be able to offer if we would want to go that direction. But I think the next step is to have Justin, I, and Amy work with McGowan to come up with a plan to present to you guys to get your feedback.
Okay. And that would be looking at deductibles, out of pocket contributions that the school would make
Yep,
to support it.
yep.
Okay.
And then also, can you add to that, of course, the, if you would recommend an amount for the HSA payment to anybody that was in that plan? Like what numbers would be good?
Right.
And also, do we currently have this critical illness or accident policy availability?
That's
Is
a
that
question,
something?
Brennan. I don't know if you have
I
those
know-
policies.
All I know is that we have short-term and long-term disability. I don't think we have the accident. I don't think we have that.
Okay, a lot of school districts do. Justin, what's the name of that group that's in most of the school districts?
American Fidelity is typically the name we come across.
Okay.
But if you find
would-
something on that, let us know. But to our knowledge, you don't have those plans today.
So
Well,
Brennan, then would you take a look at the long-term and short-term care and, see if that's the best thing to offer or if something else would be?
Yeah, I can reach out to our rep from American Fidelity that works with our FSA accounts and have them, get us information on if that's a benefit that the district wants us to offer to our staff. Yeah, I can do that.
Hey,
And is
Brennan.
there-
Oh, I'm sorry. If I could just also say, if you could coordinate that through Justin, that would be helpful too.
Yeah.
Just so we're in the loop, because we may not know what they're telling you, and it would be helpful if we could coordinate that.
Absolutely.
Lyda and Danny, I didn't hear much from you. Did you guys have any other concerns or questions?
No, I was actually just about to ask one other question, and that was for as far as the district contributions, is it common or successful, or what are your thoughts about the first year being a higher amount of contribution from the district, just to have a comfort and help people, like Jacob was asking? We don't want to stick anybody in a situation where, holy cow, I have to come up with this $4,000, deductible, and I have no idea where it's coming from. Is it common to sort of ease that transition for year one and then back it off for the following years after that? And is it successful? What have you found for?
We do see organizations that do that, where they'll front end load first year that they implement the plan. I think this is more of a philosophical discussion that you have to have as a leadership team, and ultimately we'd like to know about it as well, because as you have new people come in, then they're now subject to the same deductible at a lower contribution if you've lowered it year two. There also sometimes is some ill will going into the situation, which I don't sense at your district, where people forget that you told them that you were going to give them more and then less in the future. And then they think you bait and switched them, and then they don't trust when really they just don't remember. So we have to be really careful with doing that. And I think for those reasons, most collectively bargained schools, cities, municipalities, etc., will go in with one amount and stick with that amount. And if they are going to change it in the future, they would change it through a match, so that I'm giving you $1,000 as a single, and next year you can also get $1,000 as a single, but now you have to put 500 of your own to get to it. Or you can still get $1,000, but now you have to come to our health fair and do 2 of our challenges to get half of it. So we keep the amount the same. We just make it different how you earn it. First year, it's kind of a gimme. And then in future years, you have to earn it in some way. So that's a more successful approach than actually changing the dollar amount, because the optics are so poor.
What are your stats on employees being able to contribute above the amount the district funds it?
Well, that's a good question. Specifically for schools, I can't answer that question. We do see many employees, probably half, fund their accounts over and above whatever their employer puts in. And we do see many employees fund it to the maximum. And, of course, this wouldn't probably be, your very lowest paid folks or those with large families or et cetera. But even, young people who are, in just themselves tend to be able to find that disposable income to fully fund their HSA on that pre-tax basis. So, when you help them put the money in at the beginning, there aren't many times that they go back and take it out. It's like retirement. Once I've committed it, I've forgotten it. I learned to live with what I have. And when you put it in terms of, could you eat out 2 less times this week? You can't get lunch for $5 anymore. That was my favorite thing to do, was get lunch for $5. What the heck? You could barely get a coffee for $5. But so, if they go to lunch twice, it's, $10, $15 each time. So if you talk to them in terms of that, like, could you eat dinner at home once? Could you have 1 less case of soda? Or, you get to help them. And, when you ask the question, how many people want to save, 20% on your healthcare the next time you have a visit? Well, everybody raises their hand. Well, how do I do that? Well, I put the money in pre-tax. Oh, you'd bend over to pick up a nickel. If you saw it in the parking lot, I'd pick up a penny. Why wouldn't you want to save 20%? So part of it is that education. And there's always going to be people that we're just not going to get engaged in the process. And so we have to try to make the decision for the whole instead of those 1 or 2 outliers that, that we know are going to be in the group. So yes, we do.
Yeah. So this is Julie. I would just say that based on the experience I saw when we got offered this plan, that the people who would normally save fund it, and the people who don't spend it. So it was more a function of the person. And also, do we offer this as a payroll deduction, where we can add, like, we can actually manage that for them, or is that not an option?
Yeah, no,
because payroll deduction is the easiest way, right? You never see the money, you can't spend it, you don't miss it.
For sure. I would highly recommend that you allow them to do payroll deduction on a pre-tax basis under your 125 plan. That's how they get the pre-tax money in there.
And then one last question that I think you've said before. I'm sorry, Danny, I cut you off. You go ahead.
That's the only way that I'm familiar with it, is for it to be pre-tax. It has to come out of has to be payroll deduction.
Yeah, you can put post-tax money in there. You would pay tax on it.
Right.
Someone gave you a gift and then you put it in there and then you deduct it on your tax return. So you can do it, but it's not very common.
And then one last question. I think at some point you told us, and it may have been even the last time I met you, the difference in premium on average, like not specific to our plan, and I know these are bogus numbers, but from PPO versus an HSA, on average, the premium difference for an employee is about how much percentage difference, perhaps? Just ballpark.
Yeah, so Justin, I don't know if you have that spreadsheet in front of you. I think we ran some plan decrements.
I don't have that in front of me. I was just looking at one the other day though, and it was a school district in the EPC that had a PPO and a high deductible. And I'm thinking for a single, it was as much as 100 per month and as much as 250 to 280 for a family. But the one thing I can't say for sure, I can't remember if that was the whole amount or the employee's amount. So I don't want to say that an employee on the family plan going to high deductible would get 300 more in take home pay. That might have been the employee and the employer's share. So I would have to double check that. But those are the types of exercises we would run for you and let you have that to help make your decision.
That sounded like my grandmother's egg timer.
And we do, I apologize, we do have the medical reimbursement and dependent care offered through American Fidelity.
Okay, but that is different than the other coverages we talked about.
I thought you were talking about the medical reimbursement.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
is that a critical accident, or maybe we could talk offline? You can send me those documents,
Yeah.
or just Justin.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't familiar. So, but yeah, I can send you those.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, well, I want to thank Justin, Anna Marie, and Lindsay for taking some time to talk, and I'll send a follow-up email tomorrow to maybe schedule a Zoom meeting to start discussion of a plan and what you need from me and us to get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Very nice to be here.
Yes, thank you guys. Also, as a note for our
Thank you.
teachers and staff, that we're not making this a mandatory option at this point. This is a voluntary option because of, well, current union negotiated contract holds us to a different plan, but we wanted to find options that if employees wanted to elect to take this plan, that we had something else available for them. Am I stating that correctly, Brennan?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Everybody have a great night.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, number 3 is graduation.
I think that was just Justin updating what the plans were and if anybody had concerns or questions.
I sent an informational email out to the board members in regards to graduation. Obviously, plans have changed significantly, even within a week, from leadership at the state level that we had to adjust and adapt. High school principal, Mr. Swope, has made contact and is still making contact with members of the senior class to ensure that their 10-minute time slot is scheduled if they want to participate. Seniors will be walking across the stage in Bethel Hall. Parents will be given the privilege of handing their child their diploma. A video will be made, pictures will be taken, traditional speeches will be made from Val and Sal. Any musical numbers will also be included, as well as a senior slideshow. We'll be broadcasting it on the YouTube channel on Saturday, May 23rd, and we will also provide a copy to each senior. The evening of the 23rd, we will also, with social distancing kept in mind, allow the seniors to line up at their cars at the school. We're currently working with a sheriff's department, might need to also work with Bethel Township Fire for a predetermined route to be provided an escort for family, friends, community members to wave, cheer, etc. From alongside the road or also from their porches. So credit to the high school staff and high school principal for putting together that plan relatively quickly and having to adjust it a couple of times. It seems to have been very well received on different social media outlets from parents and community members. Also, to kind of update you, we are also doing a virtual prom as well. That'll be taking place on May 9th. Students will be able to quote unquote walk the catwalk at their homes. Prom court will be very unique. A tiara has been ordered for all 53 members of the senior class, the ladies that will be honored, and they'll be delivered to each of their porches. And we'll be compiling a video and photos of students in prom attire, and a video will be provided to each of the students as well. So I think for the situation and what we're dealing with, we're trying to make the best of it and give the students as many moments that we can from which they've missed.
Justin, this is Jacob. One of the questions I had is, what support would you need from the board for the graduation?
You know, it's obviously going to be very limited as far as attendance. I mean, we're trying to keep less than 10 people in Bethel Hall at one time. I know I'll be in attendance. We'll have some videographers there. Obviously, the students and the parents high school principal. So, with that being said, we could potentially have a couple of members attend, but if all 5 want to be in attendance, we'd be way over the 10 limit, depending upon how you folks feel about that. I'd prefer to maintain the 10 or less for social gathering. If you can't participate in the actual ceremony or be there, I guess you could always, I plan on participating in the parade as well. So that's an opportunity also.
No, sounds good. I was just asking if there was any piece you wanted us to play in that role, from the graduation ceremony to participation, or another way we can support in those aspects.
Yeah, I think as the board president, if you wanted to be in attendance, I think it'd be good, just to kind of be there if you're available. Obviously, they're doing it on a couple of different days. I know Mr. Swope and I are going to say a few words. I'm going to try to keep it brief for the video, but more so focused in on motivational, inspiring, trying to just make it as positive as we can for the kids. It wouldn't be the typical length of a graduation commencement speech that I'd give, but I do think it's important to say a few words as a superintendent.
Oh, definitely you and the Principal Swope for sure. Okay, well, we can, if you come up with any other needs, then let us know, and we can support you.
I will. I'll get those specific dates that they have 3 different dates where they're having the students and their parents sign up for time slots that work best for them. Obviously, you probably wouldn't be able to be at all 3, but maybe you could take turns and have different ones there for the different nights if you're available, just to kind of say congratulations to the kids that come through. You obviously wouldn't be able to see all of them, but you could potentially be able to if you were able to participate in the parade that evening on the 23rd.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think it'd be nice opportunity if, a couple could be there, if it's on different times and different days. I think that's something we can work out amongst the board members and you as needed.
Okay. I would anticipate you folks, let me follow up with Mr. Swope tomorrow morning, and let me anticipate an email from me sometime mid-morning, giving you the details on those 3 dates and the time slots, and then you guys can kind of work it out amongst yourselves if you're available.
Copy, thank you. And I apologize, that just came to me while you were discussing the graduation, and I didn't send that to you in advance to have it all worked out. So
yeah, that's no problem. We're all busy, so I get it.
And when is the parade route planned to be released? Is it going to be the week right before graduation, probably?
Yeah, the parade, obviously, we've released the date. It's the 23rd. We haven't released the predetermined route yet, and I'll have to get with him as well tomorrow and see if he can indicate, where that parade's going to take place as far as locations and what roads they're going to hit, and et cetera. And as soon as I get that stuff, I'll get that to you as well.
But the plan is to have some of it in Bethel Township and some of it in the Carriage Trails neighborhoods as well.
Correct. It'll be a combination of both, with obviously being known that we can't hit every road in the district, but we're going to try to develop a route that hits as many different homes as we can.
Justin, this is a pretty phenomenal kind of a thing, that this could become the new tradition for graduating seniors, the senior parade. If this goes well, this could be one of our new things that continue on.
Well, we talked about throughout the course of the last 9 months or so, we want to obviously celebrate past traditions and not lose small town Bethel feel, but we also want to embrace new ideas and new things that become the new Bethel tradition. And I would 100% agree. I would hope that we never have to do a virtual graduation again, but I do think the idea of having a post-graduation parade route throughout the community, township, and our various developments could become something that hopefully the streets are lined up with little kids that get to see those graduates, and hopefully, want to do that themselves one day. And I might motivate those kids to continue to work hard in school. And it also gives community members a chance to wave and say farewell and thank you for 4 years, or, how many years they attended school here, and parents to also participate. So I agree, it could be a very neat thing going forward, and thing that becomes a new tradition here at Bethel.
Copy. Any other points to discuss? All right. Number 4 was course of study and student handbooks annual.
So that was an item that has been brought up recently with some postings on various social media outlets in regards to course of studies 7 through 12, and then also student handbooks. You know, currently we annually board approved student handbooks. Is a course of study something that the board would like to have presented to them each year in similar fashion to the handbook, where you get a copy of the course of study and then you get an attachment to it as far as new classes that are added, a class description of what it entails, how many credits the students earn, those kind of things, so that we're all on the same page, and potential issues can hopefully be avoided with kind of having this approved. And then obviously if things get changed later on, it would need to be reapproved and everybody kind of be in the know as far as what's going on. So I guess it's more of a discussion piece for you folks and kind of getting your ideas on that.
I think this is Jacob. Just from my perspective, it's not about getting down into the weeds and trying to develop what is the courses that we're going to teach, because I think that's obviously in your lane and the principals and the teachers. But I think if it was brought to the board for us to vote on, to say, here it is for this school year, that'd be very difficult to just change it on the fly and create something else, and to create possibly a controversy, that it would be a slow progression to make any changes to what we're projecting. Because, you know, we do pick out the courses and set up the schedules fairly decent in advance, and it could present the opportunity to easily to just switch a class, and maybe not everyone is fully communicating on what that change is or the requirements. I think that it would be a good idea for us to receive those and then vote on them.
Yeah, I mean, I would reiterate that as well. Obviously, the board is the one that makes the ultimate final decision. But you know, from my perspective, it would not be for us to sit down and hammer out necessarily which classes we're offering and which classes we're not offering, or what this course description looks like. It's more of just keeping everybody in the know and being on the same page as far as, you know, what we're currently offering, and then what are some new things that we're looking at that we're developing internally with administration team, guidance counselors, teaching staff, etc. And so that parents also are aware of all the different offerings and kind of what courses, you know, class section wise, what it leads you to, as far as you need to take this class to get into this in high school if you're doing high school for credit and middle school, etc. So that we are making sure that we're setting kids up for success long term.
Yeah, I would support having it board approved. My question or my concern is just knowing in the last 4 years how this has changed. This year it changed after the 8th graders and maybe some of the high schoolers had registered for classes. You know, we were going from 7 periods to 8 periods. So there are a lot of issues on when it needs done. And then the other problem comes with courses themselves. Sometimes CCP changes, College Credit Plus changes. And I don't know if that affects the handbook or not. I'm not as versed in the handbook, but sometimes the district's not even aware of those changes until spring. And I would assume we would need to approve this. I think when I talked to you, Justin, you said probably January timeframe.
You would look at the end of the first semester, right after Christmas break. I mean, you could do it probably as late as February or March if you had to. I mean, if that's a concern, but obviously mid-year would be a time frame to kind of start looking at that for the following year. And then obviously if you approve it and something has to change, whether it's on our end or the state's end, you could also always do an addendum type.
Okay. Okay, then I'm fine with it. I just wanted to clarify because I know the last few years and some of it too, we had at one time we had new principals and so they were still getting acclimated to what their job responsibilities are. Right now we have all veteran principals. So I think that that changes the dynamic a little bit.
Well, I think also, you know, with that being said, obviously personnel changes do happen. And if you have something in place that's approved, that's a document that, you know, they walk into kind of having and knowing what's been in place prior to them. So it's almost some professional development training, having spoke with our current middle school principal who, you know, started after the school year started. And I asked him in regards to course of study, I don't necessarily know if there was one officially put in place. He actually created one since he's been here. So, and I think that's an area where you need to have something in place that's on paper that people know about, that's made available on your webpage, on their district site, and also their building site so that people can pull that up. Now, obviously, you have to make sure it's updated annually, but people can pull it up and they can kind of browse through it and see what all the different offerings the district has under the various disciplines, and then obviously what their students can take, how many credits they're worth, how many credits they need to earn towards graduation, which classes in middle school count for high school credit, which ones are CCP classes, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's good to have just as an informational tool, not only for students, but also for parents.
I agree. So is the plan, do we need to approve the course of study for the 2020-21 school year? Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Well, we're already in May, so we will be in the 2021 school year already. I would defer to Justin. Do we already have most of this, or would we be
we
setting
do.
this?
I would anticipate that we would probably plan on having this in place, being approved for next school year, just because
Okay.
a lot of the scheduling and the master schedule and those kind of things have been done. Plus, that will give the appropriate parties enough time to make the necessary adjustments if there need to be made to their current course of study and make sure that it's polished and ready to go for next year. I think we're a little late in the game to have this approved for next year.
Okay.
Okay. Will we be seeing that the May meeting, or would that be June?
I didn't catch that. You kind of cut out. I'm sorry.
Would that be for the May board meeting or for June?
Well, if we're going to approve it for, the following year, I would say that we would end up having that course of study for you folks next winter, if that works for you.
Okay.
That's usually done in December, so you can start scheduling in February.
Correct. So, our scheduling is kind of done for the 2021 school year.
Right.
Or it's being finalized and wrapped up in master schedules. I would anticipate this would be in place for the 21-22 school year, and you would be taking a look at it next December, January-ish.
Right. So Justin, as Jacob, will we be able to receive the information for what the course of study is for the 2020, 2020?
Yeah, I can have them get that to you ASAP.
Yeah, because I think too is this may fall into one of our elements in our strategic plan, possibly, that it would be in one of the supporting elements to the strategic plan.
I would agree with that as well. Yeah. Just another way for us to effectively communicate with families, to let them know what we have to offer and what their kid can have. And then also, when you have new families visit the district, I think you should also provide them this copy of this so they can be aware of the different offerings the district provides as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Julie, did you have a question?
No, I'm glad this is happening because I've asked a couple times. It seems like this is the one area where the board hasn't really been provided much information. And I don't say that as a complaint because we've had a lot of other priorities, especially with the growth and everything. So it seemed like the curriculum was going pretty well. It wasn't on fire, so to speak. So, we didn't have to put that out, right? But I for one would love to learn more about it. And, just to be, as Justin said, to be informed and to be made aware.
Justin,
So
when
I
they send
need
us, sorry, Julie, when they send us
I
the
was-
court, oh, wait.
I was just gonna say, if we're provided a copy of this, does it need any explanation, or is it just something we can review, or can maybe at a work session or something over the summer, maybe just hit some highlights or tell us how it gets created and how changes happen and how, the future is planned for and things like that?
Well, obviously things have changed with our current situation, and I can't, I don't know how things have been done here previously in some regards. With the change this year of having principals attend regular board meetings, from my experience, what I've done previously was during those board meetings, when they present a handbook, they actually have the handbook as part of their discussion piece, and they briefly review it with the board, essentially the changes to it. I would also anticipate that they would do the same thing with the course descriptions, course guide for each year, and they would describe to you, what classes have been added and why, and maybe if a class has been eliminated because of lack of enrollment or whatever, or interest in the class, why. So it would be obviously the guide attached that you'd be having a chance to review prior to getting it. And then also there would be an attachment that would simply just break down the different changes each year to it.
Okay. Sounds good.
I mean, if that works for the collective group, that's how I've done it previously, and it seemed to work okay. But if you have a better way of doing it, I'm definitely open to suggestions.
I love that. I think that's great.
I would just like to see a sheet on what changed from 2019-20 to 2020. That would be helpful for me. Not that I don't think the whole thing's important, but what did we add for this coming school year?
Yeah, that would be the plan. So you'd have a one-page document or a two-page document that shows the specific changes that are highlighted and why they're being made,
Right.
and that kind of stuff, similar to your handbook. So you'll get the whole document, but you want to get down to the meat and potatoes of what's changed in it, so you don't have to read through it and try to find all the different changes.
Yeah, and that's what I guess when you ask the guidance counselors and principals to send it to us, can you have them send that one-page summary to us, like what changed from previous years? That would be helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I mean, that'll be part of. That's the beauty of BoardDocs. So that stuff will all be sent in BoardDocs. You just be able to log into it, and you won't have to wait for us to have printouts for you guys or to send an email attachment that is. It's easy to lose things in Google with email with the chains. So I think the nice thing about BoardDocs is it's going to be a lot easier to find stuff moving forward.
And then on the student handbook, I'm going to switch topics just a little bit. I don't know. I know the student handbook has the Val-Sal policy in, and I know they wanted that changed. So I don't know what they're going to present to us for. I don't think it's going to be in a state to present to us for the May board meeting. So I don't know what we want to do with that.
I would put it on hold for now until they're able to form their committee and have their Zoom meeting and kind of put together their formalized plan. So I was able to follow up with Mr. Swope after the last board meeting and kind of give him some direction as far as what you folks were looking for. I just think he's been, like all of us, really busy with trying to get graduation and prom and keep in contact with staff and students with remote emergency learning, that it'll probably be something that he hopes to get to very, very soon once we get towards this end of the year and things kind of quiet down a little bit. I would not anticipate having anything for next week's meeting. So I would probably put it on your docket for potential review sometime this summer.
Okay, but my concern is that's part of the student handbook that we haven't approved yet.
Okay.
So we need to approve the student handbook at some point, and I think they like to get them printed over the summer. So we habitually have approved those in May. So I don't know what we want to put language wise. Look for, this policy is to be determined, or I don't know what the appropriate legal.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will let him know that.
I mean, I'm not expecting it done in May either, but I don't know if we should hold up the whole document because that one piece isn't done.
Yeah, you could always approve the handbook and just remove that portion and then discuss that at another time and then add that as an addendum. I don't know I don't know where he's at or how long it takes for printing and to have copies for the kids to have for agendas for the following year. So that'll be part of my discussion with him to get some feedback on his end tomorrow when I speak with him.
Are we still giving out paper copies?
It's a great question. Of the many things I've had to learn this year, that's not one thing I've had to, I have no idea if we do here or not.
Lida, I think the student handbook at one time was printed in the front of the agenda. I don't know if it still is. I could go ask my kids.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought most districts, I mean, my district had moved away from that, I know for sure. And I don't know about this one, but yeah, I mean, I know it's in the front of the agenda that we do get it printed, but I don't know that we need to continue that. Maybe we can just put a link in there.
Yeah, I would have to ask Mr. Swope. You know, we could all look pretty foolish right now. And he said, we haven't done this for 3 years. I just have no idea.
And I've not seen a high school agenda. I've only seen middle school. So, you know, middle school and elementary.
Well, we have been printing them because that deadline, that caused a big slap last year. So I know we printed them last year.
Okay.
Agendas, yes, I totally agree, but it's the handbook itself. Does that handbook need to be included in that? Like, can we not?
The handbook, yeah, the handbook was printed as part of it last year, or at least we were told it was going to be. I guess I can't say for sure that it did get printed. But I thought one of the reasons for printing it was so that the students couldn't say, oh, I've never seen that.
Yeah.
You know, and we haven't approved 2 of the handbooks yet, right? We pulled those out.
Well, the high school is pulled out, and then elementary will be approved this month. You have that handbook. I emailed that to you.
Correct.
Right.
I thought we already got that. We got the additions. Yeah.
Yeah, I've sent you guys all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to approve it.
It'll be on the agenda for this month.
And any of the board members has changes or things that need change, please get those to Mr. Ferks as soon as possible, so that we'd be voting on something with changes. All right. Does anybody have anything?
Printed, by the way.
What's that, Brennan?
They are printed for all buildings.
Okay. All right. And then, as anybody have any other comments or questions in regards to course of study and student handbooks?
We are still waiting on a response back on the biology prereq. I haven't heard anything further. So hopefully we can ask Barrett that at the board meeting. Hopefully he'll have an answer for us.
Yeah, and that kind of ties in with the whole having your course guide approved every year.
Yeah, excellent point. Okay. Next on the agenda, you have classified contracts.
Just a friendly reminder that classified contracts will be on the agenda for your consideration this month. I'm also having building principals and our athletic director work through supplementals as well for next school year. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen and when the state's going to be opened back up and when activities and athletics are going to be able to meet, but it's important that we are prepared on our end and have qualifications completed, updated, and people board approved before they can start workouts, practices, those kind of things. So you could probably expect a slew of classified contracts to be on the agenda for this month. That will include custodial, bus drivers, aides, etc.
All right, and then for any of the supplementals that would be over the summer or during fall sports, since we really don't have any idea of what the environment's going to be, if we vote on those now, those would be in a predetermined if the sport was a go.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, because we wouldn't be in a situation where they were already starting practices and workouts and then the season got canceled. If it would get extended and, for whatever certain reason, the fall season would not happen because practices and workouts never started, we wouldn't be under requirement to have to pay those folks.
Okay.
Is that going to be specified in the contracts?
Not necessarily specified in the contracts, but we can definitely communicate that with people if you would like us to.
Well, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, so we don't have different opinions of what it means.
Okay.
What is, Brennan, is there?
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I would say what Justin's saying. We can communicate. We really can't. Right now, we can't wait and see. So we need to get it done in case whatever's determined. I can reach out to legal, but I would agree with Justin. This is on the contingent that fall sports will happen at some point. If they don't, like it's stated in the Ohio Vice Code, there's a little, like I said, interpretation. So if it would come to that, that's where you would, as a school district, would refer to it. But as of right now, those contracts won't be available anyways to sign until August, if we're open up for school next year.
Maybe there could just be like a rider along with the contract that they could view and sign as well, turn it in at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I could ask John how other schools are handling fall and winter supplementals for like athletics and if any academic related. But as of right now, we're in a unique situation, so there's no concrete guidance for it. So like I submitted earlier for the spring ones, the classified revised code is an epidemic, and we're in a pandemic. So it really, if depending how how a school district wants to interpret that is a way. But like I said, we feel that practices started and everything, and coaches and staff were committed in doing the job at task. So it's going to be unique and it's going to be different in the fall where the sport never started. So but like I said, I can reach out to John and see if we can add a blurb in there. But like I said, there's really no authoritative guidance related to this right now.
Right. And Justin, or I'm sorry, Brennan and Justin, both of you, my concern isn't, are we going to be able to not pay $2,500 to a coach? My concern is really that the coach doesn't plan to accept it if the sport doesn't start. That's all my concern was, that they would overextend themselves in that aspect. But yeah, we'll look forward to that guidance from legal. And I think as well as whatever if the union contract covers any of that as well, validating whatever it says. But I definitely agree that we need to identify them now, get them voted in, and so they can be prepared for signing the contract 1 August and move out with taking care of our kids. And so I'd like to be an optimistic in this forum in regards to that it'll happen. So we might as well put them in position.
Hopefully it's an under promise, over deliver situation that we're able to do. That's where I'm at.
Is there any guidance from like the ODE, or is there someone we can go to that maybe has some in on the legislative side of things? If they're going to.
Yeah, I think OHSAA and ODE will push that as soon as they get it. I just don't think the states work through what it's going to look like by fall sports. I mean, as they're working through the progression of opening up businesses, I think we'll probably get some fidelity in June, maybe about what they're planning to do for schools. And then that'll help guide us, I think, in that aspect.
Well, maybe we could get in the queue or the list of people they notify, or, the more people they get the question from, the more it might come to the top of the to-do list. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah. I believe our representative or state senator that's is Mr. Huffman is a part of the education committee. And I think we could reach out to him as well to see what he's pressing for and any insight that he might have from his position. I can do that.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Anything else on classified contracts?
I do not. Just wanted to give you a brief update on those, where we were at.
Okay. Thank you. Next would be personnel policies to review. 1240, 1330, 4120, 0.04, 3120, 3120.04.
I think these were policies that had been brought up previously, or they were brought up previously, but I don't think you were able to attend a meeting, so the collective group held off until a later date. So it's some discussion in regards to some of the ideas that maybe some of the board members have or the collective group has in regards to some policies and some potential things they want to review or potentially change.
Yeah, I agree. I thought we had some language in these that there was a tagline in them that I thought was too restrictive, I think, for us hiring the best people for the positions to support our school and our community in those aspects. Did Lori, do you have that readily available so we could discuss?
Yeah, I'm checking my email.
I mean, I believe they had to deal with, there's no way we could vote to approve if anybody was related to anyone in the school system or anyone that has any type of relation to the fourth cousin that could be hired at our school.
Yeah, here's the recommendation is to leave the administrative contract, the policy for hiring of administrators alone. That one was fine. What I'm suggesting based on the research for 3120 and 4120 and the associated substitute policies to change to this language. Sorry, give me 30 seconds, or how about 10 seconds? Let's see here. So what I suggested is relatives of board members may be employed by the board, provided a member of the board does not participate in any way in the discussion or vote on the employment when a conflict of interest is involved. And the second part is relatives of staff members may be employed by the board, provided the staff member being employed is not placed in a position in which she or he is supervised directly by the relative staff member.
And that was the requested language change, is that correct? That you just read? Okay.
So Jacob, this is what happened is going through all those policies, some of them have those two lines in them. Some have one, some have the other. Some have additional things that were more restrictive, as you pointed out. So the idea would be to go through these 5 policies and scrub them down to these 2 things that Lori just proposed, that those 2 lines are in all of them, they become consistent, and we remove anything extra, such as lines that say the board cannot hire a relative, which was just all encompassing, right?
And so just so
that's
members
the idea behind the 2 lines.
Yeah, and just so members of the community are aware, if they're listening in, I did research Tip and Troy School District, and they had both of these similar lines in their similar policies for classified and certified staff. So we're not doing anything that is what I would consider out of the ordinary. We're just trying to make all of our policies consistent, and those seem to be consistent with some districts surrounding us.
Just for reference sake, the previous 2 districts that I served in as an administrator at the building level and the district level, not saying this is how you have to do it, but just a reference, those districts essentially had in their policy that if you were voting on somebody who was related to a board member, et cetera, they would simply just abstain from voting. So obviously the 4 board members would vote, that person would abstain, and then obviously you'd have to have a majority of 3 votes to have the motion passed. But that's up to you guys.
Right, Justin, and that's one of the 2 statements that we want in there, is that, yeah, the board member would abstain if there's any kind of conflict. And then the other is relative to anybody related to a staff member cannot work directly for that relative, which is pretty common practice, right? You don't want your spouse to be your boss.
That already happens at home. I don't need it at work.
Exactly. So that's the 2 thoughts. And as Lori said, it's really to make the policies consistent, because we have the language in the policies. It's just not consistent. Somewhere in one, somewhere in the other, and somewhere in both, and some had additional things that need to be removed.
So, Brennan, will we send you, what's our next steps? Do we send the changes to you and they go to Neola, or we make the changes and put them up for review for our 3 readings?
Well, you can do it either. It's whatever you guys prefer. I know we're going to have some other policies that are going to need to be updated and have 2 reads. I know Justin had a meeting with Norm last week on that. So if you want to wait and do them all at once, or if you're eager to get these changed now, it's really up to you guys how you want to proceed. They are the board's policy. So just let us know what direction you want to go and we'll get it done.
I don't think any of us have a, go ahead, Julie.
Well, what you're going to say is probably not true, because I do have an opinion. I think we should do these sooner rather than later, because we have suspended one of these policies.
I agree. I think we should do them sooner than later. I don't think we should wait until the other.
I don't think we should leave it suspended, yeah.
Okay. So just looking for direction, Brendan, how do you want us to manage that?
If you would send me the changes, if you haven't already, and I'll work with Della and Norm to get them updated in Neola, and then you can have your first reading Monday if you wanted to.
Well, they're gonna already have some policies for review on Monday as well. So I mean, it could work out well.
Okay.
So I mean, Mr. Burkhardt and I had a Zoom and Neola meeting last week, and those options were chosen and changes were made based on different criteria and expectations. So if we're going to do it, we're in a little bit of a crunch, but I think we can get those 3 done easy and have them updated and for the board to look at for first reading on Monday at our meeting.
That sounds great.
Brennan, do you want me to email you tonight or call you in the morning?
You can, yeah, if you want to email them tonight and whatever. I just realized that I have to get the severance pay one that I emailed you guys back in the beginning of the year that we don't have for classified done. So, yeah, if you just want to email them to me and I'll get them to Norm so we can get them updated.
And then the other 2 we needed to talk about were 1240 and 1330, which specify a January 31st evaluation date for the superintendent and treasurer. And I didn't know what the board wanted to do with those.
Well, the superintendent one, I thought we had said that we would basically change to what Justin had requested in his, when we created the evaluation, which I don't know, Justin, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it was an annual evaluation and then twice in a year of a contract renewal.
That's how it's currently stated in the document that I created.
Right, so we probably want to make our policy.
Kind of good practice. If you get into a situation where you haven't already done an extension and you're in the last year, for peace of mind, depending upon not knowing, what's going to happen with your future, it's best practice to have a January performance review and a end of year one. So that if you have to go look into a different position, that you at least have a couple of evaluations to take with you.
Right, I agree with that 100%. I'm just saying that I thought that's what we had talked about, was just matching our policy to what we had put in the evaluation. It's already stated in the evaluation, right? We just need to match the policy to it.
It's
Yeah, I
currently
think,
in the evaluation document, yes.
yeah. And I'll see if I, yeah, go ahead, Lori.
Julie, can you make the changes in both the treasurer and superintendent policies? Because we need to review both of them by at least by January 31st, the year of their contract renewal. So can you make the appropriate changes in both documents and send it to Brennan?
Okay, and Brennan, did you want it the same way twice in the year of a renewal? Is that, Justin, is that a standard for the treasurer as well? Or good practice?
I mean, that's up to Brennan. And I'm just coming from my perspective and how I was trained and I was taught. So I don't know if Brennan has different feelings, that might be different for him. So
Last year of the contract, you would have to do it by January 31st because you have to let the treasurer, if you're going to renew or non-renew, by the end of February of the last contract.
Right,
So,
but would you like it to be 2 in that year?
I would just say, I would say as long as I'm evaluating my last year by January 31st, I'm okay.
Okay.
So what about for non-contract renewal years? Would it be later in the year or earlier or same date?
You can do it whenever. I would imagine you would do it closer to the end of the fiscal year, end of the school year, as that would give you a whole year to evaluate.
Okay, so like May 31st.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I can take that one.
That makes sense. Okay. And then did we just cover all those policies we had listed there? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lori.
so,
And thank you. Go ahead.
So sorry, just one thing for the personnel ones, there's actually 5 of them because there's a couple that are .04 that have the same inconsistency problem.
Right, but the one we're not changing, the administrator one is good as it is.
It didn't have a statement that said can't hire any relatives.
I don't remember, but the administrator one was fine as it was. It didn't have any ambiguous language in it.
Yeah, your administrative contract is determined individually.
Okay, so then there's 4 of them.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And one of them, I think, so the one for the classified has the extra line that says you can't hire any relative. It's a generic, at least that one has, and I'm not sure about the .04s. I can't remember when I went through them, but yeah, there's some that have extra language that needs to be treated as well.
Okay.
I'll copy you on what I send Brennan, Julie.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussions? All right, moving to number 7, which is pay for the 2020-2021 for classified administrators.
This one, basically for just wanting to know for next year, the board, when you approve the classifieds on Monday, last year we followed what the union contract stated. So if, if they worked certain school years, they got 2 years of experience, and then they got the correlating steps if there's a step involved in the total number of experience. Next year, it's if they work the 16-17 school year, any teacher that worked that, they get a years of experience credit, and then they get the step correlating to that if there is a step available. So typically the classified have followed that. So that's the direction I need for related to classified is, are we implementing that for them or is it something else? And then for administrators, I need to, or you guys need to discuss and let us know if you wanted to do what percentage of raise at all.
Okay, and I believed that when we originally looked at this, when we were discussing it even last year, that we were moving the classified the same way we were doing with the teachers.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the rest of it, I think we could we had, if you're able to provide us significant details as one of the items in executive session, I think that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, I provided a spreadsheet like I did last year related to the cost of raises or related to what we know to what could be known. So that's what I sent you guys, and I can provide that.
Okay. Number 8, strategic plan.
So we're currently working through the process with the impact group, and did a couple of Zoom calls with not only the administration team, but also the board. We do have several items that need to be addressed via personnel, and that will essentially be when we get a communications director in place. A couple of those items, we as a collective group envision that person kind of leading the charge in those areas. So from the document that's been provided, there's some to be determined still. Once that is kind of known and those responsibilities have been delegated, we're also working with them on some pictures and some facing type stuff to allow the impact group to get it ready for presentation to the board for consideration. And then based on your consideration, obviously its potential release to the community. So I would envision that this is going to be done over the course of the next several meetings, and it will be displayed for the community to see and parents, and released on various media websites to have in place for the start of the 21-22 school year, or 2021 school year.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions with strategic plan?
Jacob, we did have 2 additions to the agenda after that, just so you're aware.
All right. You want to go ahead and lead it?
Well, the first one was the 5-year forecast. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page with what we were doing. So that's really a Brennan issue. So Brennan, can you kind of
You
clarify?
noticed the governor today announced $775 million budget cuts. $300 million of that is related to K-12 foundation payments, which I would imagine will be for the last 3 payments because they've already processed, as I checked today, the payment that we're supposed to receive Friday. To me, I have a meeting in the morning with our five-year forecast software company to go over it. I would say most likely we're going to get less received for the last month and a half, between $150,000 to $200,000. With that also, there was a bill introduced yesterday to delay the 5-year forecast requirement for May until December. I was going to plan on presenting a 5-year forecast on Monday. However, I am going to retract that. And if that bill gets passed and signed by the governor, I do not plan on doing a 5-year forecast for May. With this cut today and possibly more cuts, because he said he is going to dip into the rainy fund, but he didn't say how much, we could see more foundation cuts. Foundation is one of the 4 major sources of our revenue. So I am kind of, I'm optimistic, but I'm also a little nervous because of the budget cuts, 2/3 was related to education. They spend over $1 billion, say spend over $1 billion a month in education, and they cut up 510 related to all forms of education in the budget. So we have a lot of unknowns. Also, income tax filing has been extended. It could be extended longer. That could delay our, collections related to our income tax. We did get our fourth income tax payment for the year. So we did end up overall 3.7% above projection. So that was good. The other thing is property taxes. We most likely will see an up in delinquencies related to the second payment. Also, there's some talks in delaying when the second half of the property tax will be due. So there's a lot of unknowns right now to when, how to affect the revenue stream. And for that, I don't think it would be wise to present something right now when I don't know what we would know in 4 months down the road. So if I have to, if the bill doesn't get passed, most likely I'll have to request a special meeting to present that. But I imagine that this bill, it will be passed and extend the deadline for the 5-year forecast till December.
And Brandon, I think that makes total sense based on what we know is going to be the cuts and the unknowns to the future cuts and reduction, that we could be putting out bad information to our community and make bad decisions on if it's not going to be there. But Julie, do you have a comment?
I have one.
Okay.
Brandon, I got an email from OEA today.
Okay.
Saying Ohio does expect approximately $490 million in federal CARES Act funds for education, 90% of which would be allocated to schools based on the Title I formula. While the Title I funding formula is different than the state foundation funding formula, these federal funds can mitigate some of the state reductions. I don't know what the Title I how different is the Title I formula from.
That is based off of your free and reduce, your economic disadvantaged students, and then you can be either target assistance or school-wide Title I, which if I don't have it in front of me, but I believe we're target assistance in the elementary, as we have a Title I teacher in the elementary. So I don't know the whole formula, but that's how they determine how they fund each school based off of your free and reduce applications from the previous school year. So it will be interesting to see how they did, how the state, how Department of Education will divvy that up, though.
Yes, it will. It made me feel a little bit better concerning the $300 million in cuts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's good news. I haven't got anything yet for that, but yeah, that will help. I do expect us to get some federal aid. I don't know if it's going to be able to recoup, because unlike a federal government, a state government cannot operate in a deficit.
Right.
Whereas a federal government can. So, it's going to be interesting to see these next 6 months and the time frame. Me personally, I'm ready to get back to normalcy. So hopefully it happens sooner than later.
Well, to piggyback off of Mr. King's comment earlier, or his, I guess, stepping up to the plate and reaching out to local legislators, I plan on doing so as well tomorrow, because I found it very interesting that the state of Ohio spends roughly $175 million a year on K through 12 standardized testing. And that'd be a good place to start with making cuts. And none of that's been discussed as far as cutting back money for those kind of things. So I think if you start there, I think that's a good place. And I find it interesting that they didn't even mention that as a potential option.
That sounds like a great suggestion.
I was shocked to see it was $175 million a year that we spend on testing a year for that stuff. So they do have a place, but I don't think they're worth that amount of money.
Brennan, I understand your concerns and, in projecting the revenues without knowing exactly what those are going to be. I'm still concerned with us needing to potentially borrow money in the next 3 to 4 months for the next phase of growth. I would at least like to see some kind of update. And I don't know if it needs to happen in May, but before we borrow those funds, I would like some kind of measuring stick. How are we doing expense wise? That's one of the reasons I like to see them every, twice a year, just to see, okay, did we overspend? Did we underspend? And I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Well, this is Julie. I'm okay with delaying it. I'm, there's pros and cons, right? I mean, I'm with Jacob. I don't think we want to publish bad data, although at this point in time, I think everybody knows that everything's changing so fast that I would think there'd be nobody that would have the expectation that whatever we publish is final. I hope though that we don't wait till December to redo things. And I'm sure, Brennan, I'm sure that you're constantly curious, as you said, as to where the money's coming from and how it is affecting the budget. And also, I swear I heard Governor say today that he is not dipping into the rainy day fund, that he's kind of keeping that because they think there's going to be needs next year and the year after as a result of all this.
Yeah, he's
So,
not.
I'm sitting here thinking, look out the window, Governor. It's raining pretty darn hard.
Sure is.
Yeah, he's not dipping in for this year, but he did say most likely for next year and the year
Yeah.
after he would, because there's a lot of unknowns.
Right.
So,
Right.
Overall, we're still good financially for this fiscal year, and overall, the district has done very well with the funds that they get. So, we're still, as of right now, we're good. It's a learning. I'll be honest, a little concerning, with the cut of this, and property taxes can get delayed. Well, you also have to keep in mind we are using part of the TIF money if we want to borrow, and if people aren't able to pay that may affect future borrowing. Do I think it's going to have a major impact? No, because I know houses are still being built and they're being sold. We talked to the developer last month. So it's just, we're going to have to keep our eye on it. But overall, we're very fortunate where we are right now. And but we just got to be on top of it.
Yeah, I would just say, I do trust everything you're doing, and I would just ask you, please just keep us in the loop, let us know what's going on, and, remember the beauty of the footnote, like everything you can tell us in a footnote of this doesn't include, this that we know is coming, and just remind us of those things, because I'm going to forget things like, property taxes are still coming on this date and that they're going to be down and things like that. So whatever you can do to remind myself that I forget things like that would be great. But I do trust your decisions, and just keep us updated as much as you can. But, you're right. Putting numbers out that are hard and fast in May that are clearly going to change by July is pretty tricky. But let's hope they make a decision soon and give us some guidance.
I would agree with that. And then I think, is that all for 5-year forecast?
I think so.
And then the last one, I believe, was end of the year exams.
Yeah, Justin, this is more a question for you. Today on social media on the Bethel Local School site, there was announced a different end date for the school year, or kids would need to be done with assignments by, I think, May 22nd. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what's the plan for exams? And I was a little surprised to read about it online before I knew about it.
Well, I mean, that information was provided and discussed yesterday with the principals. And so, I mean, I'm getting daily emails on it. So, I mean, I would have anticipated that information, having had it yesterday, would have been easily released by today. So I'm going to get information out on my end. May 15th is the last day where students are going to be receiving any new assignments. The week of the 18th through the 22nd will be an opportunity for students to turn in any incompleted assignments, missing information, etc. And then obviously the following week is the final week of school. High school students, and it was communicated back on social media. So I'm looking here at the Facebook page about finals. Finals, they're not having finals. So there are no finals. So that kind of answers that question. And then there were some questions in regards to CCC plus courses and that kind of stuff, and placement tests. Well, they're using GPAs and ACT scores for alternate measures. We had another post in regards to the plan for state testing. State testing was postponed like a month and a half ago. So we've released a lot of this information already, and that's kind of where we're at with that. So the staff will be coming in, which I think I shared with you folks today. Staff will be coming in elementary wise the week of the 18th through the 22nd to bag up student materials. We'll get all that stuff organized out of the elementary, from classrooms, lockers, desks, etc. It'll be organized neatly in the high school gym in brown paper bags with student names on it. We will now also be releasing at a future, very soon date, a pickup time, drive-through style, for parents to come through the back of the school, pick things up through the gymnasium doors, and then also drop off any school-issued property in return. So it'll be a give and take. And then the following week, middle school staff, high school staff will be in doing the same stuff as well. Middle school and high school principals will be organizing a schedule for students to come in, and also limiting the number of kids that are in the building to get items out of the building as well. So that's kind of where we're at with the end of year activities. Middle school and high school students will still be receiving a letter grade. Elementary students will be receiving a pass and an incomplete, and they're currently in the process of setting percentages of assignments needed to be turned in to receive a pass, etc. As soon as that stuff's finalized, that will be released as well to get to parents.
Justin, this is Jacob. Excuse me. Is one of the things for the staff and the students coming in, just to err on the side of safety or caution for our staff and the students, should we be asking them to have a facial covering to come into the school?
We most certainly can for the staff. I don't anticipate any students being in the building. So I think, at both levels, either it's going to be, if it is, then we can ask of that. I would hope that we could figure out a way to have items be picked up like the elementary is, with students showing up to the front door, and then a drop off of items that they need to return as well. And if it's something we need to provide as a building, face shields for staff members, we could look at that as well.
I think a lot of kids still have stuff in their lockers, Justin.
Correct. I would anticipate that the middle school principal sent out a Google Doc today to have staff members come in and volunteer and help clean out lockers. So I know that because I signed up for like a week's worth of time to help as well. So I think they're in the process of helping organize stuff for kids.
Didn't the elementary principal already send out a one call on kids coming in to pick their stuff up?
Has she sent a one call?
I heard one. I heard one the other day, just a couple of nights ago, and it started over 3 times after it was about 30 seconds in. But I believe that was the text of the call.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to it briefly. I get that call. I think it was more of letting them know we're in the planning stages, and then we'll have defined dates released very, very soon, just to kind of an update to let people know we're working on it, and in the process of getting that out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Justin, I was just bringing it up based on what the stay safe order had, was if there's an opportunity where we're going to be less than 6 feet apart, that we should have the facial coverings on. So that's the only reason why I brought it up.
Okay. I mean, you would probably know better than anybody on the district's end, what are the chances of us being able to secure some of those, or is it very unlikely?
They are somewhat backlogged unless any of our residents would like to present those.
Okay.
Donate them.
I mean, would it be an unfair request to ask a staff member to bring their own?
I don't. Most of them probably have been using them when they go to the store.
Right.
Since a lot of stores
Most people have it. Most people have them, and they used them at a uniform drop-off. All those staff members were wearing them.
Okay, so
Fine.
I will get with the principals tomorrow and have them message the staff that are planning on coming in to, if they have one, to please provide or bring their own. And then if they don't, we can obviously look at our end to see if we can secure any.
I think too is, it's a cloth facial covering, so bandanas, regular masks, surgical masks, anything they can pull up that covers their face and nose to reduce the droplet spread. And I think and protect them, if there is an opportunity for parents coming in that could interact with the staff, that we would ask that they would do the same to protect our staff.
Okay, perfect. We'll do.
All right. Was there any other items to discuss? All right. Next would be hearing of the public. Brennan, do you know if we have any comments or anything? Hold on, I'll pull it up. Oh, miss. Does anyone else have the YouTube pulled up to see if anybody made any comments? I'm seeing none.
Yeah, I just pulled it up and I'm
Does anyone
scrolling
else
right now.
have the YouTube pulled up to see if anybody made any comments? I'm seeing none.
Yeah, I just pulled it up and I'm
Does anyone
scrolling
else
right
have
now.
the YouTube pulled up to see if anybody made any comments? All right, well, I'm not seeing any comments, and in the repeat 3 times, there was no comments. So the next thing I would say is, I know we have to go into executive session for at least number 1 on the agenda. No comments. So the next thing. Do we have any other items on the executive session to speak about? Other than was it number 1?
Number 4. With number 4. With
Number
number
1 and number 4. All right. Are you able? Can you scroll the screen for me, Brennan? There you go. Okay. All right. Does any of the board members have items for the executive session other than 1 and 4?
I don't, Justin, it's Julie, but if we're not planning on taking a vote at the end, maybe you could just mention that.
Okay. For the one that I have, I wasn't planning on making a vote for me, but
No vote for mine.
yeah. Did you say, what number did you say, Danny? 4 or 1?
1.
1 as well. Okay. All right. So as we go.
Jacob, I just wanted to check. Justin, did we need 6? I can't remember. For some reason, I was thinking we did, but maybe I'm confused.
Yeah, sorry about that. Number 6 as well. I apologize. Thank you. Good catch, Lori.
All right. Thank you. All right. So a motion to go into executive session for reasons of 1, 4, and 6 listed on the agenda. Do we have a motion? Thank you, Danny. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie, for the second. Any discussion? All right. Before we go, my discussion topic is I'd just like to give a last shout out, as we've all talked about, thanking our teachers, staff, and personnel for all that they're doing to get through these times and to help support our students for the remainder of the year as we go into the next. Brennan.
Staff as well. Teacher Appreciation Week. So we have, as a district, made a purchase for all district staff members that we want to kind of give to them when we get a chance to see them again, to say thank you for all their work at the end of the year, because we're obviously going to miss out on the end of year employee banquet and awards and luncheon and that kind of stuff. So thanks to the staff for all they've done. It's been a great year so far, and we have something coming your way very soon.
Thanks. You rock, and you also, everyone in the front office that supports everything we're doing is just a spectacular job. So it's just unbelievable. So, all right, Brennan, can you call the roll?
Mr. Elam,
Sorry. Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
7:57 p.m.